Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending today's webinar, Unleashing AI Opportunities with a Strong Data Foundation, sponsored by AWS and Reltio. I'm Andrea Anderson, and I'll be introducing this webinar. Just a few notes before we begin. To access additional resources for today's presentation, please click the Handouts tab button on the left side of your screen. You can access closed captions from the bottom right corner of the video player. This webinar is being recorded and will be available to watch on demand within 24 hours. We'd love to hear from you. During the presentation, please submit any questions you have using the Questions and Answers tab on the left side of your screen. Time permitting, we will conclude with a Q&A session. I'd like to start off by welcoming today's moderator, Irem Radzik, Senior Director of Product Marketing at Reltio. Let's begin. Irem, please go ahead.
Thank you, Andrea. Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to moderate today's webinar with three experts in life sciences, AI and analytics, and data management technologies. So our first speaker, Nick Kashyap, Head of Data and Insights at Genentech and Roche Diagnostics. Nick is responsible for Customer 360, Patient 360, Master Data Management, Data Science, and ML across Genentech and Roche Diagnostics in the US. His goal is to find the best ways to leverage cloud and mobile solutions to enable seamless integration of business functions using data insights to drive strategic decision-making and large-scale initiatives. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Very nice to have you here. And our second speaker, Dennis Louth, Worldwide Head of Life Sciences Commercial Strategy and Solutions at AWS. Dennis is a healthcare life sciences industry expert at AWS. He supports customers across the globe in their digital transformation journey to better address changing industry needs and unlock business opportunities along the entire life sciences value chain. Welcome, Dennis.
Thanks for having me here, Irem.
Thank you. And our third speaker, Venki Subramanian, SVP of Product Management at Reltio. Venki is the Senior Vice President of Product Management responsible for platform and industry solutions. Venki leads Reltio's product strategy, works with customers across key industries like healthcare, life sciences, financial services, insurance, and others to create unified data products to support their businesses. Welcome, Venki.
Thanks, Irem. Hi, everyone.
Hello, and in this next hour, we will talk about trends in digital experiences, the role of AI ML in enabling them, the challenges in delivering AI-driven digital experiences, modern data management best practices to enable these customer experiences. So that's the goal of the session. So I'll kick it off with the question, what are the trends in digital experience expectations these days? And I'd like to start with you, Nick, if you can give your perspective at Genentech and before that.
Absolutely. So healthcare is not insulated anymore with the rise of data and digital that we are seeing. Clearly, all our customers, are drawing parallels to what they experience in their life outside of work. The consumer is what is driving a lot of these experiences and expectations. Here at Genentech, we stood up a program called as Integrated Customer Experience a few years ago, which was really around understanding and very carefully listening to what our customer wants, what are their needs, and then anticipating some of those needs better. That way we are able to bridge the gap. And for us, at the end of the day, it's a patient at the end of every equation that we solve here at Genentech. But we work with the entire healthcare ecosystem. We work with HCPs, we work with healthcare professionals, we work with HCOs, the healthcare organizations, the payers, the insurance companies, and all. And we have to really look at the experience across the journey of the patient.
Yeah, it's no longer one entity that is the customer. It's a broader group. Thank you. And Dennis, if you have anything to add in terms of what you see as digital experience expectations.
Yeah, I think to add to Nick's point, what we see and what is super important to put the patient in the center of this ecosystem. And there's a key trend, of course, what is driving that, what we call the consumerization of healthcare. So patients are ever more empowered. They want to be part of the care decision making. As we know, when patients are getting diagnosed with a disease, they are starting to looking for information. I believe that is really something which is very much changing also the way how we need to engage with patients, how we need to engage with providers, how we also need to help providers to make better decision making, to get the right information in front of them in a world which is also driven by very much medical information explosion, which makes it very difficult also for providers in this noisy world to make the right decisions for their patients. So I believe that's definitely a trend we are seeing, where those patients and also the providers are expecting a seamless engagement experience. We call this also the digital front, where wherever they are in their care journey, that they want to be met at the right moment of time in this care journey, and that also when it comes to how we engage with them, that we need to move out of how we have done this in the past. I'm in this industry now, this 25 years. But what I think the biggest change now is we really need to create personalized experience at scale. We need to move out of this end to many, and we really need to understand those customers we having, being the patient, being the provider, being other healthcare stakeholders as an individual, and really understanding what are their needs, what are their preferences, and then contextualizing insights to really understand what to do in terms of best impact for the engagement with those customers. And I believe that is something very important, as otherwise we can't really improve the experience. And there was an interesting study out there a couple of years GE Healthcare has done with some hard factors that more than 80% of all healthcare consumers are dissatisfied with their healthcare experience. And I believe that's a big call to action for us as partners in the industry to make a better job, really to provide better care experiences.
Yeah. And Venki, you've worked at Reltio with many life sciences customers. You have anything to add?
I think both Nick and Dennis both made really great points. The one perspective that I would add is when we talk about those digital experiences and the expectations from patients, providers, and other external constituents, there is also a lot of internal sort of process optimization and operational efficiency enhancements that play directly into that, right? It really impacts how quickly new drugs can be brought into the market, clinical trials can be completed, the provider experiences, new provider onboarding or other kind of things can be done. So many of those aspects. So I think it is equally important to look at, start from the experiences and the expectations, but also look at how we can improve the process efficiency and all within an organization to actually deliver to those expectations.
Yeah,
And
they're
that is
linked.
yeah, exactly. It's a virtual cycle that you improve one, the other one improves, and you need to focus on both aspects.
Right. So let's talk about the opportunities behind these digital experiences. What are the business outcomes that customers or life sciences businesses are expecting and achieving when they deliver these digital experiences? Maybe, Dennis, we start with you first.
Yeah. So from my perspective, and Vanki and Nick already alluded to that, I think the most and the ultimate impact we can create by that is a better care experience, and with that, better health outcome, and hopefully also at lower cost for the society. Because at the end, what we are doing there to provide providers with the information they need to make better decision making, then which hopefully translate them into better care management decisions. That, of course, ultimately then should also help us to drive better outcomes for patients. Also, what Vanki said, which I believe is a very important piece of that, once then also you have a better customer experience, and as a primary customer for life science companies is a healthcare professional, it will also lead to faster adoption of new medicine, because that's also what we have seen in the past, that once those physicians don't have the right information at the right point of care, it also sometimes also takes a longer time to adapt new treatment opportunities, really get patients access to very much needed medicines to address unmet needs in terms of care journeys. And with a better experience, with really better information, which contextualized insights and those physicians are having to make the right decision making along the care continuum, the business outcome also for life science companies will be to make a better business, because then the physicians are also much faster adapting then in terms of their behavioral change when it comes to new products, and give those new products also to the need of their patients. So I believe you always need to come, and in Amazon we always work backwards from the customer, and therefore it's so much important when we think about opportunities really to mind through this patient and this provider journey, really to understand what are the needs, what are the leakage points, what are the leverage points, and really to come to this provider and patient 360, because that's the only chance then really to work backwards from that, and then to decide what those customers are needing in terms of making then the best decision at the end, which translates then to better outcomes. And that, I believe that's the biggest opportunity we have together as partners, that we can at the end drive better outcomes, and hopefully also at lower cost for the healthcare systems.
That's a big need. And Venki, anything you want to add?
I mean, there are some good examples that we can bring up here, right? One I specifically remember is there is a case study published by Pfizer sometime back about the introduction of a new, oral COVID drug, Paxlovid, where they talk about application of technologies, AI, machine learning, and other kind of things, accelerating their clinical trials by about 50%, or improving their supply chain efficiency by about 67%, which basically translates to 20,000 extra doses of medicines per batch, right? So we talk about these business opportunities and efficiencies it can produce. You can see the direct correlation to how we can make better treatment, better drugs available to market faster, and impact a patient experience and provider experience overall.
Yeah, wonderful. And Nick, can we hear your perspective, especially what you see at Genentech with your investment in this area?
Absolutely. And it's funny that Dennis, he mentioned about less cost to the society, and one of the 2030 ambitions for Roche, the company that we work for, uh, the pharma ambition is to provide 2 to 3 to 5 times more benefit to the patient at 50% less cost to the society. So that's where we have been thinking about care, we've been thinking about access, we've been thinking about experiences, patient experience, customer experience, and everything else that fits in the middle in that healthcare ecosystem. So maybe a lot has been said about the customer experience. Maybe I can just briefly talk about access. So we believe that access is a fundamental right. Access to care, access to medicine, access to the healthcare ecosystem across the board. And how do we enable that? So we have multiple programs that we are starting within our organization to really look at health inequities that we have today. And data is at the front and center of that. That is the guiding principle that is helping us identify our patient population from the clinical trial perspective. That is also helping us identify and target some of our customers with the right information based on the demographic that they belong to. So it's really making the word personalization come from the high tech to really within making it real within the healthcare ecosystem and providing the care that people need, the patients need.
Wonderful. Venki, earlier you mentioned the AI opportunity. I really want to go there as part of our focus today. So how is AI accelerating the next-gen digital experiences and some of the examples that deliver on this business outcome promise? So can you start on that?
Absolutely, and there's a lot of attention in the area of AI, specifically with recent enhancements in generative AI. If we can have the slide up, actually, I have a few data points that I've captured here from examples across multiple industries, right? And we can contextualize, and Dennis and Nick can speak about how we specifically apply this in life sciences and healthcare, but across customer experience, process optimization, security, process improvement, productivity, collaboration. There is so much of opportunity, truly game-changing potential that AI has, and generative AI has just brought this to the forefront. If you look at some of the recent studies in this space, there is this very interesting McKinsey study that was republished with some new insights in 2023 that talks about 4.4 trillion worth of benefits that generative AI alone can unlock, and overall potential of AI is expected to be somewhere in the $20 trillion range. Just to put things in perspective, US GDP is about 23 trillion. 4.4 trillion is roughly the size of Germany's overall GDP. That's the kind of impact that we are talking about. These AI and generative AI kind of technologies can bring across multiple areas for businesses and for consumers.
That's amazing. Yeah. Dennis, can you give us some examples of the use cases for AI that you see across the life sciences businesses?
Yeah, sure. Of course, there are a lot of use cases along the entire value chain. I will focus a little bit more because we talk about digital experiences more on the commercial, on the medical affairs side, and everything which is around omnichannel customer engagement. To also, add to what Venki said, of course, there's a lot of hype at the moment around generative AI. Let me first start to say that in Amazon, and we have had the opportunity to work with fantastic customers like Roche Genentech for many many years, leveraging AI for a lot of different use cases. Because we are already using artificial intelligence and machine learning to really drive certain business outcomes already since many many years. And generative AI has not changed that, but generative AI will have certain application where generative AI will perform better than traditional AI and machine learning. And that is also something which I believe it's very much important to understand, because at the moment I feel when I discuss with customers, there's a tendency to put generative AI on everything, but at the end this will not solve it. So really first, you need to understand what kind of use cases I want really to solve, and then work backwards from that, and then to decide on the technology which is best suited to solve this specific use case. I give you a couple of examples how we are working with life science customers really to leverage the opportunities of AI and generative AI in the commercial domain. So one big area, of course, is everything around contextualized insights. So we are working with a lot of customers using now AI, machine learning to really provide them with better insights around their customers, around the patient, around the healthcare professionals, and really translate those insights into also next best experience recommendations. So the big need still in pharma. This whole area started very much rules-based, but we need to move out of rules-based decision systems, because rules-based systems are not scalable, and you need really have a data-driven approach. So one big application for those AI and machine learning systems is everything around contextualist insights and next best experience recommendations. I also, choose always next best experience, because we need to move out from this next best action thinking. Because next best action is kind of pushing activities to the providers and to the patients. We really need to come from the lens of our customers, and we need really to understand, how we can really enhance their experiences. So that's one example. So another example is, for example, the productivity, what Vanki also said. We are working with a lot of our customers to embed AI-powered knowledge assistants in the organization. So think about a typical life science organization. They are sitting on so many data, a lot of multimodal data, and most of the time, those data are sitting in a lot of different knowledge repositories. Very hard really to access, to unleash value of the data. And what we are doing there, we are building AI-powered knowledge assistants, which are using then semantic search capabilities, retrieval augmented generation, plus a large language model, to make it very easy for our customers, for life science companies, really to unleash actionable insights, and also to democratize this access, these insights across the organization. And another example also is, which gives you a little bit the art of the possible, what you can do with AI. So we are doing a lot of work also in using AI to mine really through patient and provider journeys. So for example, when you use AI and build machine learning models on top of longitudinal health data, we have been able to predict also outcome of patients. So we have done a couple of projects with our customer where we have built machine learning algorithms to predict disease progression patterns, to really predict, when the patient will progress in their disease. And why that's so much important? Because it can help us to already intervene before an event is happening, rather than to wait that we are doing then care management with those patients. I believe we need also to think about how those technologies can help us to transform this care paradigm we are having, and moving from care towards better diagnostics and better health management of those patients. And there, of course, also AI and machine learning can help, because they are able really to mine through a lot of different data to make predictions then, and then you can use those predictions to better help them patients. So that is definitely one area we see in that space. And the last area, perhaps I want to mention, because it's also very much important for the whole omni-channel engagement, where AI can really help you, is all around intelligent automation. So think, for example, content management in pharma. It's still a very cumbersome process. So when you think about the medical legal review process, when you think about content tagging, a lot of our customers are still doing in a manual way. If you now think about the digital experience you want to generate, you want to move to personalization at scale, you will not be able to do this without any AI augmented intelligent automation. And that's another big piece we are doing, where we're helping our customers with things like, for example, auto content tagging using our AI services in AWS. Also things like, for example, how AI can augment the medical review process, with the aim really to accelerate content to market and bring faster resonating content to the customer than to the providers, so at the end that they can then make better decision making. These are only a couple of examples. There are much more, but it shows you a little bit, where also now companies need really to leverage the opportunity of generative AI, of AI overall. But this will only work if you also have a strong data foundation. And I believe that is also something we
Yes,
will capture
definitely will go
perhaps
there.
in the webinar as well.
Yes, definitely will go there. Thank you for leading towards that. So, Nick, can you tell us Genentech's focus in this area? What type of investments that you guys are doing?
Absolutely. So I'll start with Roche even, right? So on the diagnostic side of things, we're making multiple investments because that's sort of the right at the start of the patient journey, right? That's where the symptoms show up and the diagnostics happen. Uh, but then also throughout the whole commercialization process, we are leveraging AI to help us identify better targets for our drugs on the research space. When we talk about development space and clinical trial space, to identify sites, help us select sites, we are leveraging machine learning. We are also leveraging machine learning to identify patients, recruit more diverse patients, and whatever the objectives of the trial are. And then all the customer experience side of things, as Dennis mentioned, there is this whole recommender systems, right, which is around next best action, next best experience. We've got a gamut of platforms there, and we ourselves went through that transition of using rules based to now AI based next best experience. That way we are able to trigger when how we engage our customers, when do we engage our patients, because we also have multiple patients reaching out to Genentech directly, and we have that capability to understand what's happening and what their patient journey is, and influence that for better outcomes and faster outcomes. We're also leveraging a lot of natural language processing technologies, right? And honestly speaking, in the last 7-8 months, this whole generative AI has taken over the whole world. But we already had an AI strategy in place, right? And that strategy was no different than our business strategy that we had. It was just powered by AI, enabled by technology. And this is where we are looking at semantic search and topic modeling, and leveraging LLMs. However, when we talk about sentiment analysis, we want to make sure that we are also looking at what are the implications of using generative AI, and we don't end up using it for triggering AI hallucinations. So this is where it's fit for purpose type of a strategy comes into picture, where we are leveraging a specific non-generative AI model to do sentiment analysis, but we are leveraging large language models across the board where applicable. And there are multiple other use cases within the customer experience area. You talk about marketing automation and revenue simulation. You talk about marketing mix, where you end up spending your next dollar to get the most amount of value. All of those decisions, all of those recommendations are coming from machines, from machine learning algorithms for us. And finally, I'll say our all of this is for our customers, and their profile changes a whole lot as well. So how do we do better customer segmentation, ensuring that there is the right targeting happening at the right level? So those are just
Yeah,
handful
I
of
see.
examples.
Wonderful. So, Nick, briefly, maybe like to talk about the barriers that you see as you put these efforts. What are the challenges that you face at the high level? That so we kind of keep that into consideration as we talk about the solutions.
Yeah, I think we briefly touched upon it. Data foundations, right? And what does that mean? It means you've got the right set of data platforms in place. You make sure that there is data liquidity, there is data flow, there is data governance, there is all of those things that need for you to feed that information into the algorithm in a compliant way, right? And we believe, that's the fundamental. So, in an enterprise like environment, you're talking about master data management, you're talking about data lakes, you're talking about data lake house, and things like that sit on top of the lake, that have the insights. And those are the things, right? Those are the things that you need to build the pipelines on and feed that information, feed that data. And we've clearly seen a lot of benefits of us making some early investments into the foundation of things. And one would argue, what has changed in the last 10 years, right? Of course, there's rise of AI, but if you look at it's not just a check mark to have a data platform, to have a data governance strategy. It's how mature you are within each of those areas as an enterprise, and that is what makes a difference.
That's a great point. Dennis, you talked about the data foundation as well as one of the key ways to achieve this AI foundation. You want to add anything to what Dennis, Nick shared in terms of what else to consider?
Yeah. So first of all, I completely echo what Nick said. It's this liquidity and interoperability you need to have, because that's your starting point. It's also then the data needs to be accessible. Also, if you think about from a self-service perspective, that really can really work with the data. So also the cleansing of data, the granularity of data as well. So I believe in terms of really driving those business outcomes we intend to do, we are dealing with much more complex data than in the past, and really then get arms around this very much multimodal data, to cleanse them, to process them, to make them also analytics ready, is something also very much important as a foundation. Another thought I would like to add to what Nick said, I've seen a lot of customers building data lakes all over the place. A data lake in commercial, a data lake in R&D, a data lake in market access, a data lake, in clinical. I believe companies need to move out a little bit of this, very much siloed data lake build. They really need to think more from an enterprise data mesh perspective, because at the end, really to drive those personalized experience at scale will also require interoperability across all those different departments. So also that a commercial team can learn from R&D, that R&D can learn from commercial, from the real world data. I believe that is also something very much important. And I believe our customers are only at a starting point at the moment, that they also think from this more enterprise lens and how they can also create this liquidity and interoperability really at scale. And the last point I would like also to add to that, when we talk about AI, you need to make it very easy for companies to start on that journey. And that's always what had been a focus for us in Amazon, really to, what we call the democratization of AI. And really to, give our customers, first of all, choice, how they would like to approach that, but also give them managed services, which makes it very easy to get very fast outcomes. And I give you one example, which is most recent around generative AI, where we have launched Bedrock, which is our service, which makes it very easy for customers to leverage also foundation models. So we give customers choice, first of all, because that is very much important. For all the different use cases you can think about generative AI, not one model will serve the purpose for all those different use cases. So that means customers need to have choice to select the right large language model, the right foundation model for the specific use case. And what Bedrock is doing to make it very easy for customers, you do an easy API call, and then you can already integrate this in your AWS environment. And also, what is very much important, you are doing this with all the security posture you know from AWS. So all your enterprise data, when it comes to fine tuning of data, are not used to train the large language model behind, because it is also something very much important, because we talk about very sensitive data. It's an IP of a company, and therefore you also need to find a way how you then can fine tune all those models so that they fit the purpose for a specific use case. But that is done really reflecting all the privacy, security, and data protection need. And that is one example where we really make it very easy now for customers to leverage this generative AI opportunity, not only for buying customers, but also for customers who like more to build, where we have SageMaker Stamset, for example, where you have a plethora of different foundation model you can really choose from, and then really find the right model for the right use case. And I believe that is something very much important, really, to democratize in an organization, that they can really leverage those AI opportunities and then really build on this transformation journey.
Yeah, no way in this complex environment one can fit all, right? So the flexibility, really cool. Thank you. Venki, we touched upon several considerations for AI and around data. Do you want to add more to that?
Yeah, I think I want to add a couple of points. One is, there is a quote that comes to my mind, which I don't know exactly who said it, but the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed, right? So
Mhm.
that's the reason why I brought up, is because what Nick said, what Dennis said, is there is so much potential. There is also a lot of technology foundations that are available, and companies like AWS are making it easier for anyone to get access, which basically is about democratization, about distributing the capability so that anyone can leverage it and apply it in a uniform manner, right? Um, I had the privilege of talking to many of the chief data officers or leaders in the data space, like Nick and others. And if we go back to principles and look at some of the things that everyone is equally looking for in terms of their applications of AI, of course, it needs to be meaningful applications of AI, right? Applied AI is a term that we hear a lot more, where it's not AI for the sake of AI. It's about how do we impact the business outcomes, the customer experiences, and others. But we are also looking at making sure that what we do is reproducible. It's not a one off. It can be repeated and can produce consistent results across those applications. It is transparent, right? And we can understand the decisions that are being made and explain it. It is compliant to standards, which is extremely important. We can't let the technology run wild and in a non-compliant way. And it also has to perform. I mean, it cannot just live in a lab environment, in a research, in a sort of experimentation mode. It needs to be something that can perform at the scale of the business. So these are some of the core principles that I think we all keep hearing repeatedly in terms of the the sort of the capabilities, or rather the characteristics of AI that data leaders and business leaders are looking for. And all of this has to be built on the foundations of data, and we touched upon a number of those characteristics, and Dennis also touched upon some of the technologies. But interestingly, one of the questions that everyone has to ask is, is your data foundation ready for AI and machine learning, or what are the capabilities that you need to build?
Yeah, exactly. I was that's my next question, and I wanted to start with you, Venki. So if you want to touch upon few checklist items that we have here, readiness wise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we
Yeah.
already have been talking about it, like
Mm-hmm.
fluidity and
Mm-hmm.
getting the right data pulled together and all.
Accessing.
One of
Yeah.
the challenges, if you look at the report that we were talking about earlier from Workday, is 80% of the data leaders agree that we need to use data in the right manner to power the AI machine learning outcomes. But about three quarters of them also agree that that is one of the biggest challenges that companies are running into. Right? It's not a lack of data, but it is about getting the right data pulled together in a meaningful manner that can power or fuel the applications of AI and machine learning. And really, the questions that we should be asking is the data strategy ready? Is it centralized or distributed or hybrid, right? Where is the data getting produced? Where is the data getting consumed? How are we connecting the producers and the consumers of the data so that we can build the right capabilities around it? Is there a clear definition of key dimensions of the data that we want? We've been talking about patient experience as an example. What is the definition of a patient? What are the characteristics or attributes of that? Where is it being sourced from? what is internal first party data, zero party data, what are the external data sources that we need to think of to create a complete augmented view of that information, right? And then there are characteristics like access and governance that needs to be part of it, and the established norms around using the data in a compliant manner. So these are few of the things that organizations are either putting in place or in the process of putting in place to be able to fuel the tremendous growth potential that AI is bringing to these organizations.
Yeah, wonderful. And Dennis, can you tell us? We talked about some of the AWS technologies, but like, what are the fundamental technologies from your perspective to invest in?
Yeah. So first of all, I believe what is very much important to think about that as a as a best of breed. So that to really choose also the right solutions, and they might come from different partners. So that's a reason also why we are closely working with organizations like Reltio, where we bring also then the right solution to our customer, which accelerates in data to value. Because as an organization, you will not be able to build everything by your own. I believe also companies need to make a wise choice in terms of what they should build internally, what kind of capabilities they should build internally, but also where it's better also to buy an already solution a vendor is offering. When you think, for example, around customer data platform, where you need really to have capabilities like identity resolution, which is not easy in life science. And in those areas, for example, it's easier then also to select a partner who has those capabilities and who can help you to integrate that seamlessly in your environment. So I think that's the first thing I would like to say. It's really looking at that from a best of breed perspective and bring then the right element which are really enriching your data ecosystem. Secondly, when we look what we are doing in Amazon, so we have established what we call AWS Health for Data. And that is a suite of services, solution, prescriptive guidance, reference architecture we give to our customers, really to help them to accelerate data to value and really to be able to much faster unleash the value of data. And what is in that ecosystem, for example, of different services or what we are using there? I'll give you a couple of examples because also Nick alluded to that when he talked about natural language processing, which is a big thing you need to do based on all the different data. We have, for example, a service, Amazon Health Lake. It's a HIPAA eligible service, and this service enables life science companies to securely store, transform their data in a very consistent, credible fashion. But on top of that, it also already helps companies to put very powerful analytics on top of that, because in the background, the service is already doing a lot of activities like, for example, natural language processing, mining through this data, make them analytics ready, and that saves you time. So that is a very important element because we are living in a fast evolving landscape, and you don't have weeks or months to put then some analytics on your data to get some kind of insights. So we really need to move towards real-time insights, which then can be translated into better customer engagement strategies. So that's a very important piece. Another area, for example, is Amazon Omics. So we talked about multi-omics, multimodal data sets. Omics is also a service, a managed service, which makes it very easy to transform genomics, transcriptomics, metabolomics, other omics data at scale to generate insights and then to improve the health of patients and advance really also scientific discovery. Another element also very important in terms of data. As I said, we need to have much more granular data. And really purchasing data is not an easy thing. So what we have done in Amazon, we thought about how can we make it much more seamless for our customer also then to, first of all, understand what kind of data sets can really then solve a certain business case, a certain use case, and make it very seamless to ingest and then process those data. So we have a service called AWS Data Exchange. Is a service which makes it very easy to, for example, buy and ingest different data sources, which then seamlessly integrate into your environment. Because also from a data purchasing and ingesting perspective, we need to accelerate this process because you need to have those very granular multimodal data because the questions we try to answer are also much more complex in the past. So also those data sources and how we can get arms around that and in-source those data in your environment, it's also something very much important. And the last thing I would like to speak about, which is also a new service we launched, but it's a very important also area I've seen your customers moving in. It's a service, it's AWS Clean Rooms, and we have announced it as a last reInvent. And that is an analytics services that help companies and their partners more easily and securely analyze and collaborate on their collective data sets without sharing the underlying raw data. And why is it so much important? Because those data, from an IP perspective, a lot of companies are not willing really to share those sensitive data because it's IP around. It's really the asset of a company. And I believe also you need to have those capabilities where it's very easy for you to collaborate on those data in a secure manner, but without really sharing then the underlying raw data. And clean rooms is exactly addressing that. Very much important because in life science, we need to look also at strong collaborations, with other institutions, with other data providers, and that is also helping you then to unleash, data from also your third parties in a very, safe environment, a very secure environment as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Nick, you told us Genentech has been investing in AI-based experiences. So if you could share what are the foundational technologies as part of your investment into this space?
Oh, absolutely. I think there are two things that come to my mind. I think the first is from an enterprise data strategy perspective, you have to make sure that your data is interoperable. There is least amount of data duplication that happens. Even if I think Dennis touched on it briefly, and so did Venki, you need to have modularity. You need to have a composable architecture. You could, because a company like Roche, more than 100,000 employees, we've got a flavor of everything, right? But we also have an advantage where we are looking at data mesh at an enterprise level. We are looking at data cataloging and making sure that we are able to gain competitive advantage for our patients, for our customers, by combining data sets in a compliant way, because we've got the enterprise data mesh enabled in our organization. This is where the foundation is extremely important. And second thing would be modularity and composability, right? I briefly talked about it in one, but the two go hand in hand. In today's world, you need to make sure there is ample amount of integration happening, right? There are multiple sources of data, different types of complexities of data. Just because in the past you created a data product for an analytics use case doesn't mean it's going to work one to one for a machine learning use case, right? So making sure that you've got that composability in your architecture is extremely important.
Okay, so I want to continue with you. Thanks for this overview of the core. I see them as best practices that you followed, but can you also share some of the learnings and what to avoid? What are the pitfalls that we can face? Some pragmatic tips in your journey that what you learned from.
Sure. I think honestly, the last 7-8 months have been great with all the hype around AI, because one of the good things about the hype is that there's a lot of investment. Everybody's talking about it. There's education across the board, common understanding, and there's excitement, right? And what happens is, there are a lot of these hypotheses, right? Whether a hype can do X, Y, and Z, they get proved or disproved, right? But what is extremely important for a technology or a AI application to be successful is to make sure you have a real use case that is serving a need today, right? And which means it all boils down to having understanding who your customer is, what their needs, what their wants are, and sort of working backwards, right? And making sure you've got the right business strategy enabled by that. So we at Genentech, we've been investing in data foundations for a long period of time before AI was even a thing. right? And we started to also invest in AI before this big hype cycle. I think it's easy for people to fall and just sort of ride the wave in the last 7-8 months, and Gen AI is an answer for every single thing, right? I think we should sort of stay away from that and be as pragmatic as possible, and really use these technologies for the capabilities that they have. They give a competitive advantage for us, right? I briefly talked about a use case where we are looking at we are developing an in-house next-gen sensing NLP-based platform where we are leveraging large language model, which are by the way integrated using SageMaker, and of course the data is flowing through our master data management system, which is leveraging Reltio technology and capabilities. However, when we talk about sentiment analysis, we want to be very, very clear with that, and we don't want AI hallucinations. We don't want any sort of bias there. So it's important that you're picking and choosing, right? And even in the previous question, right, I talked about modularity, and it all ties together. The right foundation, right modularity, right strategy, right use case. All of these things would help us make sure
Yeah.
that we're on the right path.
Yeah, I guess because you're so business case centered, I assume that also keeps the teams across the company more engaged and leveraging and supporting. So, I mean, what are your best practices around gaining the momentum in your organization to continue to invest?
Well, I think in the last couple of years, what has happened is, data was always behind the scenes, right? It was on the other side of the curtain, right? But I think there is a realization across the board that data is everyone's business. And I think working on data is extremely exciting because we make, because this is what powers the AI experiences that we are talking about. So that in itself is motivating and satisfying for people to work on. And the nature of business that we are in, right, we are in a business of life, right? We deal with patients, so that in itself is very empowering and motivating.
Yeah. Thank you so much. These are very cool, important tips. Dennis, can we talk about your guidance in terms of best practices or the pitfalls to avoid? I know we touched upon a few, but it will be good to
Yeah.
summarize. Mhm.
Yeah, perhaps I can add a couple of points. So first of all, Nick has brought great points.
Mhm.
I can only highlight this is very important to be successful on your AI also journey. Also, when Nick said focus on what matters, it's very much important. You focus on the use cases that will also have the biggest impact for your business, and start with those use cases first and work backwards from those use cases. Why that is important? Because sometimes life science has a tendency to do a lot of pilots. I always call these pilotitis, and they are not moving beyond those pilots. And it's very much important when you focus on what matters that you are able also to scale those pilots to really create impact. So that is something also I've seen it's super important. Also, you need to change the culture. I still believe in certain organizations, the general perception of data is for reporting purposes. You need to change that culture. It needs to be a mindset that by generating data driven insights at scale, enterprise leaders are able to understand why they also need to have such a data driven culture and what you are able to do with unleashed insights at scale. Because as Nick said at the end, our purpose is we are working in a very purposeful industry. With those insights, this can translate into better health outcome for patients. And that is, of course, a huge purpose. And therefore, it also needs to start looking at data from a different lens. And that data is really a strategic asset for you to create those signature customer experiences. And in our case, ultimately then to create better outcomes for patients. I believe that is also something very much important. We talked about the modularity. I fully agree. I don't go into that and this best of breed. I believe it's important because also companies are moving out of this walled garden of some vendor systems. They want also to have open source system. They want to have data freedom, getting arms around that. I believe it's a big change also we see now in life science, and it needs to be enabled by your infrastructure you are using. But also then the aim for speed. I also talked about that. Speed is very much important to keep also the momentum in an organization, because if those things in terms of transformation take a long time and people don't see the impact, it can slow down really the willingness for this transformation. So speed is very much important. Those real-time automated data processing, which allows you really to turn data into insights and then act with speed and execute on your insights, I believe is also something super important. You can only do this if you are moving to the cloud. I think we all agree on that. If you are on your legacy systems, you will not be able to leverage all those opportunities. And the last, perhaps, thing I would like to say in terms of be successful, you need to work also holistically, because we discussed a lot about technology, and technology plays a very important piece. But in order to get this solid foundation, it's more about to have the latest AI and analytics capabilities. It's also you need to include your people. You have, of course, all the processes you have in an organization, and then of course data technology as well is also very much important. But you need to look at very holistically, because only if it works together you will be able to create the best business outcomes.
Great. Thanks so much, Dennis. And Venki, would you like to add more around the data management best practices or
Oh,
pitfalls to avoid?
I think we have touched upon so many important points, but I will also go, just once more, have a highlighter on just the starting with the business outcomes in mind,
Business.
right? So the
Yes.
visual that you're seeing here is what we normally work with our customers on, and sort of guide them or sort of use it as a collaborative brainstorming process. What you see on the right side are the key business initiatives across growth, efficiency, risk, and compliance that many of the life sciences companies are focusing on today. They go across things like improving sales effectiveness, improving HCP experience, patient engagement, digital health, and things like that. And we have to really identify what are those outcomes, what are the specific initiatives and the key outcomes we are targeting, and how do we augment those experiences with the right applications of AI, machine learning, or in general using the data as a foundation, right? And you work back from there into the core data domains and create those data products that can be curated or brought together from various first party, third party systems and all of that. Nick touched upon the concept of data mesh and the way of looking at data as products or data products itself. So if you look at what is required from an enterprise data management perspective, it has to start with the outcomes. You have to work back in identify the specific data products that then needs to be collected or brought together to power that. And what kind of governance and trust do you need to establish in the process of curating and collecting the right data sets, using the right technologies, right foundations. And you also need to look at, from a machine learning perspective, what is the model governance and trust capabilities you need to establish, whether it's about making the models discoverable, accessible, understanding the drift or bias of the models that are getting developed and things like that. How do you develop explainability of the results that are being delivered out of it? How do you develop training and other kind of capabilities there, right? So these are all different aspects. I feel like I'm probably just repeating some of the things that or summarizing some of the things that we have talked
Interesting.
about. But the two key takeaways for me is start with your outcomes in mind, build the right foundation, starting with the core data domains that you need to bring together and the right data sets you need to bring together for any of those outcomes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. You guys answered my questions, and I see several questions from the audience that I want to take. So, one of them is so the operational use cases that were discussed have very strict data latency and availability requirements. What are the Reltio AWS capabilities to achieve these performance and availability requirements? Maybe Venki, you start.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll start then. I'm sure Dennis probably can
Mhm.
add additional details. But Dennis mentioned one thing: we have to really build our data foundations on modern technology backbone. Cloud is essential to that because that gives you the immense sort of scalability and the performance that is expected, that is needed to meet these expectations, right? And if the data volumes today are larger, like maybe 10x of what it was, maybe even just a few years back, it's only going to increase from here onwards, right? So build on the right foundations. select the right technologies that are oriented towards that scale and performance. And cloud, I think, is essential as part of that. And the cloud-based services that are being created by leaders like AWS is an essential component of bringing all of these things together, all the capabilities together in the right manner.
Mm-hmm. And Dennis, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, what is of course super important when we talk about cloud is also the availability of services. So you need to have a very strong footprint to allow for this low latency and high availability. So in AWS, we have, of course, all those regions and those availability zones. So we have globally now 99 availability zones with in 31 geographic regions. So that is very much important from a latency perspective, but also from a data residency perspective, because when you're doing then those kind of AI machine learning and leverage those opportunities, it's also, in some markets it's very much important where those data are also residing. So therefore, you need really also to provide them choice where you then can really run those workloads. So, the global footprint, of course, is very much important. Then I would say, secondly, also give customers choice really in terms of the services they would like to use. So we have so many storage, so many database services, and it's really to provide customers the right tool for the right use case. Because depending on that use case, where you, for example, need to have a lower latency, or in other use cases where you need to have a high durability for your data, we provide really then the right tools also for the right use case. And the last thing I would like to mention, also things like ETL sometimes can be very cumbersome, very time consuming, have a lift to really to do the extract transformation and also loading of data. And what we are also looking at kind of no ETL when it comes to, for example, integration of services like Amazon SageMaker together with our warehouse service, Amazon Redshift, really to make it very easy and very seamless for customers really to leverage those opportunities without having the heavy lift of doing, for example, ETL. So that is also something very much important, that you can really speed up your use cases, and that also, can really generate the best benefit with accelerated data to value.
Okay, thank you. I know I'm going to take one question. I know we don't have tons of time to cover that. It's around this data security and privacy aspects. Maybe it can have its own webinar. But if there's anything you want to talk about from a technology foundation perspective as best practices to ensure data security, maybe we give 1 minute to that before we close. Maybe Dennis, we can start there. If you can give a brief best practice summary.
So yeah, for us, we always say security is job zero. So that's one of the most important things. And it also goes back to our shared responsibility model. Important to mention that when we talk about cloud services, AWS is responsible for the security of the cloud, and our customers are responsible for the security in the cloud. So that means, when it comes to data protection, when it comes to data encryption, for example, when it comes to access control, when it comes to really monitoring what is happening in your environment, we have many, many services which help customers really to get arms around that, really to have fine-grained access control to sensitive data, for example, to really track what is happening in your environment. Of course, up to services to encryption of your data in motion and at rest. So that is something very much important. But as you said, we can spend a whole webinar only to talk about security. For me, the most important thing, it needs to be easy for customers. Again, because sometimes security data privacy can be a blocker, and you need really to have the right tools in your hands, really also to address those very important issues. But that should not hold you back then, also again, to leverage then those opportunities you can do then around advanced analytics and AI. So therefore, we have a lot of services helping our customers there. And the last also thing in healthcare life science, what is very much important, is also certifications. HIPAA compliance, of course, because we are working in a very much regulated industry. Of course, also you need to have also certifications for the service you're offering. And we have in AWS more than 130 HIPAA eligible services, which then is also very much important that it enables really then the foundation that you can really work then with those services in this highly restricted and compliant and regulated environment we are in life science healthcare.
Thank you. And I know, Venki, we also have the certifications. Do you want
Right.
to add anything on that?
I think the only thing that I want to add, and maybe a slightly higher level point, is security and compliance need to be looked at in terms of how you're collecting the data as well as the results that you're producing out of the machine learning or AI or any kind of those data technologies that you put in place. It is equally important to understand the personal, the people aspect of it as well, right? It requires training. It needs investment in those people to upskill them, to make them understand really the boundaries, the constraints that they are operating in. There are many services that make it easy for us to get results or get us up and running, get POCs done, and all that. But before something can be really deployed, it is important to understand what are the responsibilities in terms of what data is being used, what data is being generated, and how it is all managed in a compliant manner.
And thank you so much for taking the questions. We couldn't cover all of them in our time. Before I close, you see on the screen a related conference on modern data management coming up in October, October 3rd, 5th. So please take a look and join us. Reltio will be sponsoring along with AWS and other data leaders will be there. And I'd like to thank our speakers, Nick, Dennis, and Venki. Thanks so much for your time today. And thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you for attending this Fierce Pharma webinar and submitting so many great questions. I'd like to thank our speakers for participating and AWS and Reltio for sponsoring today's webinar. A recorded version of this webinar will be available for you to access within 24 hours using the same audience link that was sent to you earlier. Thank you again for joining, and we look forward to seeing you at future events.